From what you've seen yourself, the DP missing on certain state functions, like even the one when the PG was on at State House, he wasn't there. They claim that they were not invited. What does that tell you?
Well, I can tell you for a fact that it is a big fat lie when they say they were not invited. The real game was this, that they were trying to make sure that there was not enough numbers in State House for the meeting to go on. Unfortunately for them, they had drunk too much of their own Kool-Aid and had believed their own spin. They had spun for so long that they have enough numbers to stop anything in Senate. But look at it this way. The people who missed the meeting and the people who voted for Waititu to remain as governor are almost exactly the same. So that should tell you this is the second time where we see that the myth of Tanga numbers in Senate has been busted. And that's really what is hurting them. What is hurting them is the realization that they do not have the numbers. It is also the realizations that a lot of brown envelopes have not completely won the loyalty of the senators who've been enjoying free lunch, as they call it somewhere. I will not say where.
So Vincent Mungai here on Twitter disagrees. He says the party channels were closed. There have been no PG meetings since 2017. Would you blame Kipchumba Murkomen when the confusion has been brewed from the top? Democracy must not only be done, but be seen to be done from the top. PGs are the surest bet of building consensus and pushing government agenda.
Well, I must agree with him when he talks about PGs being part of the consultative process of showing up support. That is definitely true. But it does not mean that because there was not a PG that the president was unavailable to talk to Murkomen. It does not mean that Murkomen had to go out there and speak completely against the president. Not having a PG is no excuse for going to represent Sonko in a court case brought to him by the executive, and then you want to claim to support the executive. Yes, PGs are important, but that is no justification for Murkomen completely acting as though he's the arch enemy of the person of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and indeed the institution of the presidency.
So, Mark, you say this is not betrayal, but we've seen even the head of state himself says, mimi nimalize yangu tano, alafu Ruto amalize zake kumi. I mean, what happened to that? It was on live TV.
No, let me tell you something. And this is something I've said over and over, and it seems people don't get it. Kenya is not a monarchy, okay? The only person who can promise the head of stateship to anyone is Queen Elizabeth and the King of Denmark and people like that. Because you can look at your son, your daughter, and say, you know what, after I'm gone, you are going to be the reigning monarch. Kenya is no such place. Let me tell you, you can never give a promise which you have no capacity to keep. Like, for example, I cannot promise you that the sun will rise tomorrow. I cannot do that. I'm not the one who causes the sun to rise. So let me put it in perspective. Uhuru Kenyatta has one vote, just like you and I. To be promised the presidency is a promise in futility, because at the end of the day, it is the Kenyan people to vote. It is not as if Uhuru Kenyatta has votes in his pocket that he could have handed to William Ruto. Secondly, if you choose to support someone and you thought at that time that this person is a good person, and then later you discover that they are not as good as you thought, and they have issues. They're mentioned adversely in some land cases, in some Western cases and things like that. Are you then still obliged to keep your promise? Can a marriage be dissolved on the basis of fraud? The answer is yes. If you find out today that your wife is a con lady, that she's really called Abscondita Nyanchama, and you thought she's called Gladys someone, you can go to court and say, I was conned, and the marriage will be annulled. Similarly, a political marriage that one half of that marriage is proven or is shown to you to be not the person you thought they were, you're also allowed to cancel your political marriage.
Mark, you may have a point there, but the other issue is he mentioned that he would do his term and then Ruto does his term. In as much as he doesn't have the votes, he could at least keep his promise. Because if I tell you, Mark, if I tell you I'm going to support you in the upcoming general elections, even though I just have one vote, my word that I will support you should still count for something. So that when the time comes, I'll still say I'm still standing with Mark Bichachi.
Trevor, I have a question. If you find out that Mark Bichachi is going to rob the nation blind and is going to totally ruin the economy, would you still support that Mark Bichachi?
But should I have seen that before I started to support him?
Well, maybe. You see, the thing is, here's the thing. We do not know when President Kenyatta saw the light, if he has seen the light. But if he has seen the light, then he has a moral obligation to ensure that Kenya is protected. Remember, the actions of any sitting president are not just for the Kenyans who are alive now. He is also sworn to protect the interest of the Kenyans who will be alive later. So we cannot say that if he discovered the truth in June 2022 rather, you should keep quiet. No. If you discover that the person who is going to inherit after you just a day before election is going to destroy the country, you have the moral obligation to withdraw your support.
And all this is happening as we gear up to 2022. And of course, it's the voters who have the final say. But this is being crafted like a hustler versus dynasty sort of politics. Yes. What should the voters be reading through this?
Well, let me tell you, when a dynasty calls himself a hustler, the voters should be very careful. Because you need to understand that Kenya does not have enough length of existence to have dynasties. It takes about 200 years to form a dynasty. And a dynasty is an inheritable position. It is not a democratic position. But if you are talking about dynasty in terms of wealth, then you tell me, between Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and William Ruto, which one of them is poor? Which one of them is hustling like you and I? Which one of them, when they miss 1 month's salary, have to talk to their landlords? Which one of them have a landlord? You see, so when you see narratives that are created to capture your emotion because you like to feel like you're hustling, that's just emotions. Because let me ask you, if you elect a hustler, then what? What does it mean for your economy? What does it mean for the price of bread? It does not mean anything. It is simply empty emotional rhetoric. And if you add on the hashtag that was trending the other day, my thief, my choice, and you know the term hustler originally meant thief. So what are you saying? You can already see the promise that is coming from this political formation, that this is going to be a nation of thieves choosing thieves. That's what it is. And for me, when you see who gets to defend Waititu most, who gets to defend Sonko most, who gets to defend all the corrupt actions, who comes out and says that Kimwarer is only 7 billion lost, it is not much money, or who comes out and says, you know what, I've never seen a country stop running because of corruption, then you know that my thief and my choice is not just a hashtag. It is a lifetime philosophy.
And now this battle has gone to the courts. Will this help?
There is, my dear friend, first, even the ruling that came out yesterday, the arbiter of political parties said that part of it had been forged. And this is my problem with these political games that we've been playing. Itumbi himself was in court the other day for forging documents. So it's becoming a norm that we create things that don't exist. But let's remember, if you go to court today, the courts will say that status quo remains until it is determined. So first, Pogisio will remain leader of majority. But second, remember what happened with the changes with the National Management Committee of Jubilee. The political parties registrar sent it back to the party and said, settle it yourselves. And settle it yourselves, according to the Jubilee Constitution, is whatever the party leader says goes. Whether that is good for them or not, I don't know. But Murkomen is a lawyer. He should have changed that before.